Founders Square was insane. Rich had to stop the car almost a block away, just outside of a cordon of police cars with flashing lights. Claire got out and had another coughing fit, bad enough that Eve patted her nervously on the back and did the talking for her to the grim-faced, uniformed policewoman standing guard at the barricade. "We need to see Mayor Morrell," she said. "Mayor's busy," the policewoman replied. "You'll have to wait." But Monica got out of the back seat and the cop's eyes widened. "Miss Morrell!" Well, Claire admitted, the smoke-stained scarecrow with fizzled hair didn't look much like the usual Monica. She secretly hoped somebody would take pictures and put them on the internet. When Richard got out as well, the policewoman gulped. "Jesus, sorry sir. Hang on, I'll get someone here." Policewoman got out on her radio and passed on information. While they were waited, she passed out bottled water from her squad car. Claire took 2 bottles and dozed back into the patrol car's back seat, where Michael was sitting, eyes shut tight. He stirred and looked at her when she called his name. He didn't look good. Paper pale, burnt in places, and apparently sick, too. She handed him the water. I don't know if it helped, but Michael nodded and gulped some down. Claire cracked her own bottle and swallowed, nearly moaning in ecstasy. Nothing had ever tasted so good in Claire's entire life as that lukewarm, flat water washing away the smoke from her throat. I thought. Michael licked his lips and let his head flop back against the seat. "I thought I'd be stronger. I've seen other vampires in the daytime. Older ones," Claire said. "I think it must take time. Amelia can even walk around in the daylight, but she's really old. You just have to be patient, Michael. Patient?" He closed his eyes. "Claire, today's the first day I've been outside of my house for nearly a year. My best friend's still under a death sentence, and you're telling me to be patient?" It did sound stupid when he put it that way. She drank her water silently, wiping sweat from her forehead and then grimacing at the sooty mess. "It's going to be alright," she told herself. "We'll get Shane. We'll go home. It'll be fine." Which even now she knew wasn't very likely, but she had to have something to hold on to. It was only about 5-minute wait, and the mayor came himself, trailed by an anxious entourage and 2 uniformed paramedics, who swooped in on Monica and Richard, ignoring Claire and Eve. "Hey, we're fine, thanks," Eve said sarcastically. "Flesh wounds, look. We kept our own part of the bargain. We want Shane. Right now." The mayor hugged his soot-stained daughter, barely even glanced their way. "You're too late," he said. Claire's knees went out from under her. It came to her in a blinding rush. The fire, the smoke, the terror. Shane. Oh no. No, it couldn't be. The mayor must have realized what she was thinking, and what Eve was thinking too, from the expressions on their faces, because he looked momentarily annoyed. "No, not that," he said. "Rich said you were en route. I said I'd wait. I don't break my word." "Much," Eve muttered, and covered it with a fake cough. "Okay, then why are we too late?" "He's already gone," the mayor said. "His father staged an attack just before dawn, when our attention was on the warehouse fire. Broke Shane and the other one out of the cages. Killed 5 of my men. They were heading out of town. We've got them cornered this time. It'll all be over soon." "But Shane!" Claire looked at him pleadingly. "We kept our part of the bargain. Please can't you just let him go?" Mayor Morrell frowned at her. "Our agreement was that I'd let him go if you brought back my daughter." "Well, he's free. If he gets himself killed trying to save his no-good father, that's no business of mine," the mayor said. He put his arm around Monica and Richard. "Come on, kids. You can tell me what happened." "I'll tell you what happened," Eve said angrily. "We saved both of their lives. You can thank us for that any time, by the way." From the glare he threw Eve, the mayor really didn't find that funny. "If you hadn't put them in danger in the first place, none of this would have happened," he said. "Consider yourselves lucky that I don't toss you in jail for aiding and abetting a vampire hunter. Now, if you want my advice, go home." He kissed his daughter's filthy hair. "Come on, princess." "Dad," Richard said, "she's right. They did save our lives. The mayor looks more than just annoyed now at this minor rebellion in the family ranks. Son, I know that you may feel some gratitude towards these girls, but just tell us where Shane is, Claire said. Please, that's all we want. The two Morel men exchanged long looks, and then Richard said, You know the old hospital? The one on Grand Street? Eve nodded. Our Lady? I thought they tore that thing down. Scheduled for demolition at the end of the week, Richard said. I'll take you there. Claire almost cried. She was so relieved. Not that the problem was solved. It wasn't. But at least they had another step to take. Richard, the mayor said, you don't owe them anything. I do, though. Richard looked from Eve to Claire. And I won't forget it. Eve grinned. Aww. Don't worry, officer. We won't let you. There were vampires out in the daytime. Claire figured that was unusual. But she realised just how unusual when Richard Morel, slowing the police car to a crawl, whistled. All of us called out the troops, he said. Not good for your friend. Or his father. The streets around the massive bulk of the old hospital were lined with cars. Big cars. Dark tinted windows. Lots of police cars too. But it was those other autos that looked menacing. As did the people standing in the shadows, surrounding the building. Some more heavy coats and hats. Even in the oppressive heat. There had to be at least 100 gathered. And a lot of them were vampires. And right in the centre, standing right at the edge of the border of sunlight and shadow, stood Oliver. He was wearing a long black leather coat, and a leather broad-brimmed hat, and his hands were cased in gloves. Oh man, I don't think you guys are going to do any good here, Richard said. Oliver's head turned towards them, and he stepped out into the sunlight. The vampire approached, moving at a slow, leisurely pace. Maybe I ought to take you on home. In less time than it took to tell Richard no, Oliver had crossed the open space and jerked open the back door of the police cruiser. Maybe you should join us instead, Oliver said, and pared his teeth in a smile. Ah, Michael. Out of the house at last, I see. Felicitations on your birthday. I would suggest, for your own safety, that you stay strictly in the shadows this morning. Not that you'll have the strength to do anything else. And he grabbed Claire, who was sitting nearest the door, by the throat. Claire heard Michael and Eve yelling, and felt Eve trying to hold on to her, but there was no way Eve could match Oliver's strength. He simply pulled Claire out of the car like a rag doll, his fingers wrapped cruelly tighter around her throat, and dragged her into the street. Shane! Shane Collins, he shouted, I have something for you. I want you to watch this very carefully. Claire grabbed at his hand with both her own, trying to prick his grip free, but it was no good. He knew just how tightly to hold on without quite crushing her throat or cutting off her breathing. She fought back another panicked bout of coughing, and tried to think of anything to do. I'm going to kill this girl, Oliver continued, unless she swears herself to me and my service, in front of all of these witnesses. Shane, you can save her by making the same deal. You have 2 minutes to consider your decision. Why? Claire whispered. It came out as a mouse squeak, barely audible. Oliver, who was staring at the decaying facade of the hospital, with its weather-stained weeping angels and moulding Baroque stonework, turned his attention briefly to her. The morning was warm and cloudless, the sun a hot brass penny in a bright blue sky. It seemed wrong for a vampire to be out here. It wasn't even sweating. Why what, Claire? It's an imprecise question. You have a better mind than that? She fought for a breath, helplessly clawing at his fingers. Why kill Brandon? He lost his smile and his eyes turned wary. Clever, he said. Cleverness may not be good for you after all. The question you should be asking is, why do I want your service? All right, she wheezed. Why? Because Amelie has some use for you, he said, and I'm not accustomed to giving Amelie what she wants. It has nothing to do with you and everything to do with history. But, sadly, I'm making it your problem. Cheer up. If your boyfriend swears on your behalf, I'll keep him alive. Let it seem from time to time. Star-crossed lovers are so entertaining. Amelia didn't seem to have much of a use for her, Claire reflected, but she didn't argue about it. Couldn't, in fact. Couldn't do much of anything but stand on tiptoe, gag for each breath, and hope that somehow she'd figure her way out of the stupid situation that she'd gotten herself into. Again. 1 minute, Oliver called. There was movement inside of the building, flickers at the windows. Well, it appears we have a domestic disturbance. What he meant was Shane's dad was kicking the crap out of him. Claire struggled to see what was going on, but Oliver's grip was too tight. She could see only from the corner of her eye, and what she could see wasn't good. Shane was in the doorway of the hospital trying to get free, but someone dragged him back. 30 seconds, Oliver announced. Well, this is coming down to the wire. I'm a bit surprised, Claire. The boy really is fighting for the chance to save you. You should be very impressed. You should take your hands off of Oliver, said a voice from behind him. Then, accompanied by the unmistakable sound of a shotgun being pumped. Seriously, I'm not in a good mood. I'm tired, and I just want to go home. Richard, Oliver said, and turned to regard him. You look like hell, my friend. Don't you think you should be with your family instead of worrying about these outcasts? Richard stepped forward and put the shotgun under Oliver's chin. Yeah, I should. But I owe them. I said. Oliver backhanded him. Richard went flying and rolled to a limp stop on the pavement. The shotgun clattered to the ground. I heard you the first time, Oliver said mildly. My, you do make friends in strange places, Claire. I suppose you'll have to tell me all about that later. He raised his voice. Time's up, Claire Danvers. Do you swear your life, your blood, and your service to me, now and for your lifetime, that I may command you in all things? Do say yes, my dear, because if you don't, I'll simply close my hand. It's a very messy way to go. It takes minutes for you to choke to death, and Shane gets to watch the whole thing. Claire couldn't believe she'd ever thought Oliver was kind, or reasonable, or human. She stared at his cold, cold eyes, and saw a thin, blood-coloured trickle of sweat run down his face under the hat. She was no longer standing on tiptoe, she realised. Her feet were flat on the ground. He's getting weaker. Not that it would do her any good. Wait! Shane's voice. Claire breathed in a shallow gasp and saw him limping across the open ground from the hospital building towards her. His face was bloody, and there was something wrong with his ankle. But he wasn't stopping. You want a servant? How about me? Ah! The hero appears. Oliver turned towards him, and as she did, Claire got a better look at Shane. She saw the fear in his eyes, and her heart just broke for him. He'd been through so much. He didn't deserve this too. Not this. I thought you might say that. Or if I take you both then? I'm a generous, fair boss. Ask Eve. Don't believe anything he says. He's working with your dad, Claire wheezed. He's been working with him the whole time. He arranged for Brandon to be killed. Shane, I know all that, Shane said. Politics, right, Oliver? Mind games. You and Amelia. We're just pawns to you. Well, she's not a pawn. Let her go. All right, my young knight, Oliver said and smiled. If you insist. It was going to kill her. He really was. Shane had something in his hand, and he threw it right at Oliver's eyes. It looked like water, but it must have burnt like acid. Oliver let go of Claire and screamed, stumbling backward, tearing the hat from his head and bending over, clawing at his face. Shane grabbed Claire's hand and pulled her with him into a limping run. Straight into the old hospital building. With a roar, the cops, the vampires, and their servants came rushing across the open sunlit parking lot. Some of the vampires went down, hammered by the hot sun, but not all of them. Not nearly all of them. Shane pushed Claire through the doorway and yelled, "Now!" A huge heavy wooden desk dropped down on its side, blocking the doorway with a crash, and then another one dropped on top of it from the balcony above. Shane, breathing hard, grabbed Claire and pulled her into a hug. You okay? He asked. No fang marks or anything? I'm fine, she gasped. Oh God, Shane. For this charcoal look, that's just fashion. You okay? She clung to him tightly. There was a fire. No kidding. Dad makes one hell of a diversion. Shane swallowed and pushed her back. Did you get Monica out of there? Dad told me, well, he meant to leave her in there. She nodded. Shane's eyes glittered with relief. I tried to stop this, Claire. He won't listen to me. He never did. Didn't you know that? He shrugged and looked around. Funny. I keep thinking he will. Where's Eve? In the police car? With Michael, she almost said, and realised it probably wasn't the best moment to announce that Shane's best friend was now a full-fledged vampire. Shane was just barely warming up to the whole ghost issue. Yeah, in the police car. He took a corner of his shirt and lifted it to wipe at the blood on his face. Ouch. Where's your dad? They've been moving out, he said. He tried to get me to go. I said I'd damn well go when I had you back, so I guess now would be a good time. There was a clatter of metal off to the side, and Claire's world gradually expanded past the miracle. And seeing Shane again take in the room where she stood, it was a big lobby, floored with scarred, ugly green plastic tile. What little furniture remained in the room was mostly bolted down, like the reception desk. The walls were black and furry, with thick streaks of mould, and lights hung at odd angles overhead, clearly ready to fall at the slightest jolt. There was a creaky-looking second floor overlooking the lobby, and around it dented filing cabinets blocked the windows. It smelled like dead things. Worse, it felt that way, like terrible things had been done here over the years. Claire was reminded of the glass house, and the energy stored inside it. What kind of energy was stored here? And what had it come from? She shuddered even thinking about it. They're coming! Someone called from up above, and Shane raised a hand in the acknowledgement. Time to get the hell out, man. Coming? He grabbed Claire's hand. Come on, we have a way out. We do? Morgue tunnels. What? Trust me, I do, but morgue tunnels? Yeah, Shane said. They were sealed off in the mid-50s, but we opened them up one end. It's not on the maps. Nobody's watching it. Then who's in here with you? A couple of Dad's guys, Shane said. That's it. She was horrified. You know there are about 100 angry people outside, right? And they have guns? Behind them, the battering at the doors strengthened. The desks blocking across grated across the floor. One torturous inch at a time. She could see daylight spilling inside. We'd better move, Shane said. Come on. Claire let him tow her along and looked back over her shoulder to see the desks shuddering under the impact of bodies. They slid across the tile with another groan, and one of them cracked in half, drawers spilling out in a noisy clatter. Shane waved to a big guy in black leather as they passed, and the three of them ran down the second-floor hallway. It was dark, filthy, and scary, but not as scary as the sounds coming from the lobby behind them. Shane had a flashlight, and he switched it on to pick out obstacles in the way. Fallen IV stands, an abandoned, dust-covered wheelchair, a gurney tipped over on its side. Faster! She gasped, because she heard a final crash from the lobby. They were inside. Claire didn't think more than half the vampires had made it in, successfully anyway, across the sun-drenched parking lot. But those who'd been strong enough were inside now, and it was nice and dark for them. No contest. Shane knew where he was going. He turned right at a corner, then left, yanked up a fire exit door, and pushed Claire inside. Up, he said. 2 flights, then go left. There were things on the stairs. Claire couldn't see them very well, even in the glow of Shane's flashlight. But they smelt dead. Sickly rotten. She tried not to breathe, avoided the sticky puddles of dried whatever that was. She couldn't think of it as blood, and kept running up the steps. First landing, then another set of stairs. These clear, except for some broken bottles she vaulted over. She yanked the fire door 2 flights up, and nearly dislocated a shoulder. It was blocked. Shane! He pushed her out of the way, grabbed the handle and pulled. Shit! He kicked it ferociously, looked blank for a second, and turned to the next flight of stairs. One more, go! The 5th floor door was open, and Claire darted through it into the dark. Her foot caught on something, and she toppled forward, hit the floor, and rolled. Shane's flashlight bounced a ball of light towards her, lighting up scarred linoleum tile, stacks of leaning boxes, and a skeleton. Claire yelped and scrambled back from it, then realised that it was one of those medical teaching skeletons, scattered out in the floor from where she tripped over it. Shane grabbed her by the arm, hauled her up, and pulled her along. Claire looked over her shoulder. She couldn't see the biker guy, the one who'd been following them. Where had he? She heard a scream. Oh. Shane hurried her down the long hall, then turned left and pulled Claire after him. There was another set of fire stairs. He opened the door, and they faced down one flight. The exit was open. Shane pulled her onto another long, dark hallway and moved fast, counting doorways under his breath. He stopped in front of number 13. "Inside," he said, and kicked it open. Metal gave with a shriek, and the door flew back to slam against tile. Something broke with a clatter, like dropped plates. Claire felt a chill take hold, because she had walked into what looked like a morgue. Stainless steel trays, stainless steel lockers on the wall, some gaping open to reveal sliding trays. Yes, she was pretty sure it was the morgue, and pretty sure it was going to feature prominently in her nightmares from now on, provided she ever got to sleep again. "This way," Shane said, and pulled open what looked like a laundry chute. Claire? Oh, hell no! Because if she hated tight spaces, there couldn't be anything much more worse than this. She had no idea how long it was, but it was small. It was dark. And he had said something about morgue tunnels? Was this a body chute? Maybe there was a corpse still stuck in it. Oh god. There were noises coming from outside the mob, coming fast. "Sorry. No time," Shane said, and picked her up and dumped her into the chute, feet first. She tried not to scream. She thought she might have actually succeeded as she slid helplessly through the dark, down a cold, metal tunnel, meant only for the dead. Hello everyone, thank you for listening to the audio file or audio reading I've done of a Rachel Kane book. I'm putting this in there, so if you want to skip past this bit and move on to the next video, that's fine by me. This is just like a cancer plug, because I want to do this, as well as also I have to do this, because the thing you've just listened to is illegal for me to do without having a charity case behind it, which I don't want it to be like a situation like, oh, I'm only doing this for the sake of cancer, which I'm actually doing this for the sake of cancer, but I did cancel this series a long time ago. It came to my recent attention that I should redo this in a better format, and I feel like now is a perfect opportunity to actually restart this in the worst possible way. Back in 1st of November, back in 2020, Rachel Kane sadly passed away to a rare bone cancer called sarcoma. Now, in the description below is going to be a link that you can. It's going to be a link so you can support the research into helping people survive and defeat sarcoma bone cancer and soft tissue cancer cells and all that stuff. So that's just going to be in the description right there down below. It is in pounds for those American ones, but obviously PayPal and all the research still goes to the same thing, because once it's been cured, once they found a cure for it or found an easier solution for it and stuff like that, it does get sent around all around the world, because everyone works on the same thing all over the world. It's just that this charity is based in UK. I live in the UK, so it still goes to the same goal to beat sarcoma for a long time, and I feel like this is the best opportunity to work with it for any Rachel King books that we do during the Morganville series or any future series that we do. Obviously, this is even going to be in the future series if we do them. So any book that we do by Rachel Kane is going to have this at the end, just to plug a little bit of a cancer support for people with sarcoma, because it is a rare cancer, and there is not a very good survival rate. So just putting that in there to help people or to support the issues that are out there, because I'm not going to get any money from these videos at all, even in like the present one. I'm not getting any money of this recording, or in the future, if possibly I do. But this is not what I'm about. This is all about for what Rachel Kane succumbed to in the end. So hopefully that as a team together we can beat sarcoma and end one of the cancers that are killing people, because no one likes that. But anyway, have a good day.